Hey guys, it's Becca. As you can see, I am finally back in my own studio. I am reunited with my computer and my desk and my art supplies and my own bed, and it's the best. I am so happy and so grateful to be back in my space and back to work. It feels so good. The first thing I did when I got back was I started a new online course, and this one has been on my to-do list for a really long time. It's my first Schoolism class, and actually a lot of people have suggested Schoolism courses in the comments over the years, and I'm finally getting around to taking this one. The one that I picked is Alex Wu's gesture drawing class. One piece of feedback that I got over and over again when I was at Idea Academy was that my figure's gestures were too stiff. They were kind of unnatural. They didn't have a fluid look to them. And it was definitely something that I recognize in my own work, even when I'm drawing from life and drawing from imagination. I tend to just zero in on the structure, and I don't think first about the movement of the pose or the general fluid motion of it. And I get really caught up in the anatomy and in the structure of it, and it leads my characters and my drawings to look just kind of blocky and stiff and not natural looking. So I found this class and I thought it was a perfect fit to sort of round out that skill set, because it's not something I've spent a lot of time doing. I've spent a lot of time doing mannequinization and I've spent a lot of time doing anatomy, but I've done very, very little study of gesture and motion and force. So far, I am really into this class, and what I like about it is that it's totally different than all the other explanations I've seen or heard about gesture drawing. And at first I was a little taken aback. I was kind of like, whoa, what is this? It's not what I recognize as gesture drawing. But as I've gone through the exercises, I'm really starting to see shapes differently and lines differently. And when I look at a pose, I'm seeing it in a very different way. So I think it's already kind of working a little bit of magic. And I always like something that feels different than what I've done before, because clearly I wasn't getting it before. So it's good that I'm seeing something new and I'm seeing a different perspective on how you can approach, for example, line of action and shape, which I will show all the exercises and explain them to you right now. So the first lesson is line of action. And my understanding up until this point was essentially that the line of action could sort of be one of three options. It's either a straight line, a C curve, or an S curve. And that's what you were looking for in a pose. You had one of these three options. And he approaches it from a totally, totally different way, which I thought was very interesting and kind of an aha moment, because if you only think about poses with these shapes, it's very limiting. You know, of course, you're occasionally going to get a pose like a person reaching up that has a really clear C curve. But a lot of times you're going to have a seated pose or an angular pose or a pose that has, you know, an emphasis on a hip curve or something jutting out. And those types of lines don't really work as well. So his approach is much more focused on communicating the idea of the pose versus simplifying it to something that's fluid. So I thought that was very interesting. And actually, I'm starting here because when I first started, my poses were a little bit too stick figure-like. They were too detailed. They had way too much going on. What he is looking for with this is for you to simplify it to something much more iconic. You know, one line. It can have angles in it. It can be complex, but it's not meant to look like a person like this. It's meant to convey the general kind of dynamic nature of the pose. And the second lesson is on shape, which I have learned is actually different than silhouette. And this was a concept I'd never really thought about. But the idea, again, is to distill the pose down into something very, very simple that conveys the overall shape, not the silhouette, but the shape. And as you can see, kind of at the beginning, I had the same issue that I was making things a little bit too silhouette-like. Like I was showing that it was a person instead of focusing more on just capturing a general shape, like something like this. And a lot of times I ended up doing them a couple times. Like for example here, I felt like this wasn't really conveying the twist of the shape and how it became sort of slender in the middle. So I had to adjust that. Again, some of these are still a little bit too human-like, but I got a lot better as I was going on about thinking about how can I make the shape as simple as possible? What's the general idea of the shape of this thing? And the reason you do this is because a pose like this, for example, or a shape like this,
is much easier to push, right? Like it's easier to jut this part out because it's a really simple shape. It's much easier to adjust this than it would be something like this because it's too complicated. You don't know what parts to move. You don't know how to move the shape as a whole because it's too disparate. So the idea of this is that you get something really simple that you can kind of warp in however you want, and then you put the figure inside of the new shape. Part of the assignment was to also do some digital drawovers, so I will show those as well.
So I still have quite a few more lessons in this class, but I will keep updating you, and thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you're getting some time to draw, and I will see you next time.